What if there was a podcast that did it all? Sports, politics, world events. Well, that's what we've got. You're listening to C&C Talks.
Hello, I'm Colin.
And I'm Charlie.
Welcome to episode 7 of the C&C Talks podcast, a weekly podcast where we discuss politics, sports, and other things going on in the world.
Just a reminder that we tape a day early, so it is currently Monday, June 13th, 2022 at around 12 p.m. Pacific time.
And let's jump right into it with the January 6th investigation. In the last week, 5 members of the Proud Boys have been charged with seditious conspiracy. That is a major charge, could carry a lot of time in prison. The Proud Boys are a white supremacist group. They actually hired a cameraman to go with the Capitol, which is really stupid, honestly, to have somebody document your crimes.
They're just proving that they did something illegal.
Yeah, I have to imagine that there's smarter criminals out there than them.
Yes.
Then what else do we have with the attack, Charlie?
Ryan Kelly was indicted for charges related to the attack. He is a Republican candidate for the governor of Michigan, and he was at the Capitol on January 6th.
Yeah, I also think
yes,
I think that something that's interesting, right, is Michigan, along with a couple other states, Pennsylvania comes to mind, Arizona comes to mind. These are swing states that in this type of year should be very favorable to the Republicans, but their parties, that party in those states has just completely imploded, and they're making it nearly impossible for them to win there.
That's true.
Yeah. The January 6th committee also, as was reported by the Associated Press, believes that there is enough evidence for the Department of Justice to indict Trump. We'll see if they actually do indict Trump. Merrick Garland has, of course, been a little bit iffy when it comes to doing this. They wants to make it seem as apolitical as possible, which unfortunately sometimes means not, quite honestly, indicting people for crimes that they committed. But if he ends up getting indicted, that would be obviously massive for the future of the country, Charlie.
Yes.
And now let's move on to those hearings. We hope that you joined our live stream on Thursday. That was the first of many hearings. There are more to come. 3 this week, including one yesterday morning that was going on actually right as we're taping this.
And also the many technical issues that live stream incurred.
Yes, so it is still on our YouTube channel. Maybe best if you don't go watch it, whatever. But
So
again,
what are
there
some
was
of the takeaways from this?
Yeah, again, several hearings this week. Let's look at some of those takeaways. What are the big ones that you found, Charlie?
I thought it was interesting that we're beginning to find out that Trump knew that he lost, and that he knew that it was legitimate, and he was already beginning to pardon Congress people, and this is obviously implying guilt because he knew that they were going to get in some trouble for this, so he was already preparing to pardon people. So I thought that was rather interesting. What were some takeaways that you had?
Yeah, well, I thought it was really interesting that the Proud Boys, we mentioned them a minute ago, their membership went way up when Trump had said, "Stand back and stand by" at that first presidential debate. We learned that he never tried to stop the mob once they were inside the Capitol. He could have done a couple different things. He could have to activate the National Guard using his power as commander-in-chief. He never actually did that. That was done by other people because...
Yeah, it was Pence, wasn't it?
I think it was. And ultimately, that's because he didn't want to. He liked that they were there. Same thing with putting out a statement. He ended up, after aides pretty much forced him to, a couple hours after the attack started, he did put out a statement. But that statement said things like, "We love you and you're very special to us." And it barely told them to go home.
Yes, this is Trump, by the way, not Pence.
He also thought that Pence should be hung, which is just not good at all.
And I think the Republican reaction to these hearings is interesting. Fox News doesn't want to air them.
Yeah,
They were going. They actually went commercial free when it was on, and they were scared to tell their viewers the truth about what was going on.
yeah, they didn't want them to like flip channels, which is really interesting because obviously with no commercials, you're not making money during that time, but you're stopping
Yeah,
viewers
I
from
think a
shifting
lot of,
over.
I think several news sources went just commercial free because it was such a big event that happened that they just
Yeah,
wanted to
but I
keep
mean, like,
people on their news station.
yeah, but Tucker Carlson though he went commercial free without even really covering the hearings, just because again he did not want anyone to flip over.
Yeah.
And I think part of it is also that some of their hosts, Fox's hosts, including Sean Hannity and Laura Ingraham, they were implicated in the scheme, and that's not really something that they would want their viewers to know.
Yeah.
The GOP is actually now calling for primetime hearings into pretty much everything, including inflation, which on top of the fact that they've voted against bills that would ease inflation, what is their policy for inflation? They have yet to announce really any type of policy to help with inflation.
Yeah, it's interesting that they're complaining about this, but they're not giving a possible solution to fix it.
Correct. They're also saying that we should hold a primetime hearing into the attempted assassination of Brett Kavanaugh, which, first of all, that's just different, right? It's one guy who was trying to do that, and Kavanaugh was already protected by marshals. Like, what else needs to be done? And he wasn't actually killed. Didn't even come particularly close.
Yes, it did not. And I believe we have a clip from Rudy Giuliani, a claim on his podcast called Common Sense. So,
Yeah.
what's that clip about?
Yeah, and despite the podcast being called Common Sense, there is nothing that has anything to do with common sense in this clip. Let's play that.
Instead of calling me and say, hey, we need you down at court, we've got a warrant for you, I would have gladly come. What did they do? They intercepted me getting on the plane. And then they put me in handcuffs. They bring me here. They put me in leg irons. They stick me in a cell. By the way, just historical note, I was in John Hinckley's cell. They seem to think that that was like an important historical note. Okay? That's punitive. What they did to me today violated the Constitution.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
That makes no sense.
No, it makes absolutely no sense, but it's also really, quite honestly, what the Republicans have been saying for some time, right? Like,
Yeah.
this is a mainstream view in the Republican Party, and I think that it's important to note that when look at, like, there's obviously a threat to democracy coming from the right, but so many people don't seem to really understand that that's a thing.
Yeah. We also have some huge news out of the UK this week. Boris Johnson. There was a no confidence vote for Boris Johnson. He survived the vote, 211 to 148, and this is just among members of the Conservative Party in Parliament. That's how the politics in the UK work. But it is still a massive blow to his political standing that there was a no confidence vote to begin with, and it was called because of Partygate. So, can we get some more on what that was and what happened, Colin?
Yeah, so Partygate is this big scandal that throughout COVID, Johnson at Downing Street held many secret parties, which were in violation of the COVID mandates for the public, that he had created those mandates, and ultimately he violated them. And on top of it being illegal, the outrage among the public over there in the UK is massive.
Yes.
It's very anti-Boris there. We also have a bipartisan deal reached on gun reform. I think that it's very important to point out this deal is very narrow. It is only an extremely small part of what's necessary, but again, small steps in the right direction. They are better than nothing. Charlie,
Yes.
Look at some of what's in the bill.
Yes, this bill would add mental health resources. It would also improve school safety and student support, as well as make it harder for mentally ill people and criminals to purchase guns. It will give resources to states for red flag laws. This legislation is still not written and still has a good chance to not pass. Louis Gohmert has a different, worse idea, and let's see what that
But
is.
what do you make of this latest development? Merrick Garland's DOJ actually coming after now Trump administration officials
John,
for their failure to comport with this political committee.
Yep. It actually puts an exclamation point on the fact that we have a two-tier justice system. If you're a Republican, you can't even lie to Congress or lie to an FBI agent, or they're coming after you. They're going to bury you. They're going to put you in the D.C. jail and terrorize and torture you and not live up to the Constitution there. However, this comes on the heels of Sussman being acquitted because the jury that had a bunch of Hillary Clinton lovers in it, donors even, they said, look, he's a Democrat, and of course they're going to lie. Everybody lies.
Yeah,
Well,
how about that jury foreperson? No big deal to lie to the FBI, huh?
Exactly.
I honestly don't really know what to say to that besides that Louis Gohmert is such a moron. And over again, we showed you a clip, I think it was last week, of him being a moron. This is almost as bad, I would say.
Yes. And we have some news out of San Francisco. Colin, can we get some more on that, please?
Yeah, so San Francisco has recalled their district attorney. His name's Chesa Bonin. This was the reason that he was recalled, according to the organizers of the recall. Their statement was, "We all agree that we need real criminal justice reform and police accountability now." Chesa Bonin isn't delivering either priority, and since he took office, burglaries, car break-ins, homicides, and overdose-related deaths are at a crisis level. Bonin is not keeping San Francisco safe. He refuses to adequately prosecute criminals and fails to take the drug dealing crisis seriously. He doesn't hold serial offenders accountable, getting them released from custody, and his response to victims is that hopefully home burglaries will go down. Bonin said he wouldn't prosecute victimless DUI offenses, and he failed to charge a repeat offender who then killed 2 pedestrians on New Year's Eve while driving intoxicated in a stolen car. Bonin has the wrong priorities. He promised to take sexual assault cases seriously. Instead, Bonin asked sexual assault survivors about making amends with their own attackers. Bonin hasn't even kept his word on reforms. 3 people died in interactions with police, and Bonin failed to prosecute any officers involved. Recalling someone shouldn't be taken lightly, but San Francisco can't wait 2 more years to improve public safety and fix our criminal justice system. Chesa Bonin must go. Now. Charlie, let's get your reaction to that.
I actually haven't been following this very much, but from what I've read, it seems very good that they are getting rid of him.
Yeah, and it also
Like he's botched every single thing he promised he would do.
Yeah, and it seems to be a blow to the far left, but also the right move. San Francisco has a really big crime problem at the moment, and that it needs to be addressed. That is a first step in the right direction. And now it's time for Charlie's thing of the week. What you got this week, Charlie?
Yeah, I have more of a factoid fact this week, which may sound redundant, but it's true. So I was looking into currencies, and I was thinking, what currency is worth the most in terms of USD, which stands for United States dollar, if you're unaware. And that's actually the Kuwaiti dinar from Kuwait. 1 Kuwaiti dinar is 3.26 USD. That's all from Charlie's Fact of the Week. I'll see you next week.
All right. Now let's move on to sports, and we're going to start with the LIV Tour. Charlie, tell us some more about just what it is.
So it's a startup golf tour. It has ties to the government of Saudi Arabia and is paying players a lot of money to join. And several prominent golfers are leaving the PGA to join the LIV Tour. Like Phil Mickelson had past comments. He said that yes, the Saudi government was evil, but he would still do it for the money because he's being paid $200 million to do it.
That's a lot of money.
Dustin Johnson's being paid 150, and
Million.
Other prominent people are Patrick Reed, Sergio Garza, and Lee Westwood.
Along with Bryson DeChambeau Ian Potier and Louis. I don't even know how to pronounce this name.
Yeah,
I think it's Oosthuizen, I believe.
it seems
Also,
like it could be.
you mentioned Lee Westwood.
Yes,
Last year, he criticized the European Super League. Do you remember that league?
I do.
That was, for those unaware, that was the league, the soccer league that was floated as a replacement to the UEFA Champions League by 12 major clubs, including Liverpool, Man United, Man City, Chelsea, Tottenham, Arsenal, Barcelona, Real Madrid, many others around Europe.
Yes.
And pretty much how it would work is that those teams would have like a permanent spot there, which is just not really fair, but huge for money for them. And Lee Westwood had criticized that last year. It's now looking more and more like he's a bit of a hypocrite.
Yes. And golfers who join the LIV Tour will be banned by the PGA Tour. They can still play in majors, but they cannot play in the Ryder Cup.
Yeah, and the Ryder Cup, that's a big loss for a lot of them. That is a big tournament that players quite honestly take a lot of pride in being able to play in.
Yes. And now let's move to the NBA Finals. The series is tied at 2 games apiece. Curry had an amazing performance in Game 4.
Yes,
and
he did.
Game 5 was Monday night in San Francisco.
Yeah, we don't have any update here there. Charlie, I want to get your opinion on Finals MVP. Who do you think will win that award?
I think it'll be interesting because I think it will really come down to which team wins the series. I do think if the Warriors win, it'll be Curry by a lot.
Yeah, I don't think that there's even anyone else that's really competitive there if the Warriors end up winning.
And I don't really know what might happen if the Celtics win. I think Curry still could win it, but I think that would be more complicated because you could have some of the Celtic superstars up for the running there.
Yeah, and I feel like with the Celtics, though, everybody on their team has shown up in a couple games and just not shown up in the others. Everyone on their team has kind of been hit or miss.
Yes.
Then let's move on to the Stanley Cup Finals. The finals begin tomorrow night between the Colorado Avalanche and the Tampa Bay Lightning. The Tampa Bay Lightning are actually aiming for a three-peat. They've won the last 2 titles, which is just really impressive. Especially a team from Florida being good at hockey is just really funny to me, I think.
Yeah. So now let's get to the MLB. The Angels, as you might be aware, because we talked about it last week, had an abysmal streak. They lost 14 in a row, was it, or 13?
14 in a row.
14 in a row, and they fired their manager, Joe Madden. And he's the second
after 12
manager.
games. And actually, I have a really interesting story that I heard about this one.
Yeah, good.
Which is that after they had lost 12 straight, to try to be fun, Madden had gotten a mohawk, I believe it was.
And then they fired him.
But the players never got to see it because he got fired.
And next, he's actually the second manager to be fired in the last few weeks because the Phillies fired their manager, Joe Girardi.
There were 2 Joes as managers. Now
they're both gone.
Now they're both gone. Joe Girardi, actually, following his departure, trashed the city of Philadelphia. He pretty much said that he's so glad that he's out of Philly because it's a smelly city and a whole bunch of other nasty stuff about it, which is just not cool. But also, you know that he's never ever going to be allowed back in the city of Philly. You know what Philly sports fans are like.
Yes. And just the All-Star game is coming up soon. So just be sure, if you're interested in that, be sure to vote at MLB.com/All-Star/ballot through June 30th.
5 times a day. Yeah, let's kind of take a look at that ballot, Charlie. Let's kind of go through it and see who you think deserves to be all-stars from each league.
I mean, I haven't filled mine out yet, so I feel like this would be a better conversation for next week.
Pause. We don't have a show next week.
Yeah, I know. I don't know. I don't want to look like an idiot.
You don't want to do that section?
No.
Okay, then let's not do that section.
Because you know what I did for All-Star. You know what I did.
What? All
I just
Mariners?
filled out the entire Mariners roster.
Yeah, okay.
Did you do the same?
Yeah.
Yeah, I figured.
But I don't think that they're deserving of it. Not
yeah,
everyone.
the two things I did was I did it twice. I just voted on two different accounts. I just did all the Seattle players and then all the Houston players.
That's actually funny.
All right. You ready to continue?
Have you guys been noticing that I'm slowly eating pasta as the podcast is going on?
Yes. Charlie, can we continue? All right. Let's also, another interesting thing that's been going on is Robinson Cano. Remember him? Obviously,
Yes.
former Mariner was suspended for using PEDs, traded to the Mets, played a couple of years there, suspended again for using PEDs, came back, did terribly, was designated for assignment, went over to the Padres. He's now in the minors, and the first game, this is really funny, was SpongeBob night for that minor league team. So which means he had to wear a SpongeBob jersey.
Yes, and that team, by the way, is the San Antonio Chihuahuas.
That is correct. So move on to World Cup qualifying. Australia beat the UAE 2-1. They have advanced to play Peru for a World Cup spot. That game was actually yesterday afternoon. We'll tell you about it on the next episode. New Zealand also today will play Costa Rica for that final World Cup spot. So at the end of today, no more World Cup spots will be up for grabs. That tournament starts in mid-November in Qatar.
And for the College Softball World Series, Oklahoma wins the tournament. They beat Texas 2-0 in the best of three championship series, and this is their second straight title.
And just an absolutely dominant run through the tournament.
Yes.
Charlie, I believe that you have something about Formula One.
Yes. There was an amazing race at Azerbaijan on Sunday with Max Verstappen for Red Bull winning again with his teammate Sergio Perez directly behind him, improving Red Bull's standing in the Constructors' Championship, and then they now lead Ferrari by 80 points. And speaking of Ferrari, both of their cars failed to finish, with Leclerc having an engine failure on lap 20 and Sainz having a suspension problem on lap 9. Actually, 4 out of the 6 Ferrari-powered cars failed to finish, with the Haas of Kevin Magnussen and the Alfa Romeo of Guan Yu Zhou having engine failures as well. There was also a good showing from the Red Bull sister team, AlphaTauri, with Pierre Gasly finishing 6th, and Tsunoda set to finish. Gasly finished 5th, with Tsunoda set to finish 6th before a DRS failure sent him to 13th.
And that is going to conclude our show for this week. We actually do not have an episode next week. We will be back in a couple of weeks.
I mean, unless we do me and Drake, which we could do.
Yeah, we may have a guest host for me. We'll see. But as of now, the plan is no episode next week. But be sure to subscribe. Episodes every Tuesday, anywhere that you listen to your podcasts. So YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, the list goes on. Also submit your questions to anchor.fm/CC Talks.
Follow us on. So from Morris, our producer, Jake, our co-writer, and Zack, our production designer, thanks for listening. I'm Charlie.
I'm Colin.
And I'm a massive idiot.
We'll see you later.